I often teach people how to stand up and how to sit down. Like, as crazy as that sounds, people will go to stand up, their knees will drop in together, their chest will slump forward, their head and neck will drop forward. And all of this is going to put extra pressure in different areas. So, we start to teach them, keep the length through the upper body, engage the core, push down through the feet, feel those glutes activate to drive you up to stand. And they're like, oh, that feels completely different.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host and health coach here with you every week. Jenn Trepic is my name. So back in 2020, we started a series of episodes digging into different methods of movement or exercise, right? I call it movement, but different types of workouts basically, right? So we can really find what works for us. We have talked about cycling. We've talked about Physique 57, which is a bar method and an interval training type of workout. We've talked about functional training, fitness by age, gyrotonic, Feldenkrais, and today we're going to dig into another modality of movement that's been around for a long time, but interestingly, and we'll talk about this, is it's often different depending on where you go. So we're going to get to the bottom of Pilates today, and I have the perfect guest for us. She's passionate about holistic health and great movement, which inspired her online movement and health platform, Mind Movement Health. Having been an elite-level dancer, she gravitated to a career in health due to her love of movement and wanting to get a better understanding of nutrition to improve overall health and performance. She has extensive training and qualifications in Pilates and various other movement modalities, including the gyrotonic expansion system and classical ballet. A qualified nutritionist and food scientist, she has worked within the health and nutrition field for more than 20 years and is passionate about helping everyone move well, eliminate pain, live a balanced life, and make being healthy easy. Sound familiar, right? Let's give a big warm salad with a side of fries welcome to Kate Boyle.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Jen. I'm so looking forward to chatting today.
I know, me too. And welcome officially to Salad with a Side of Fries because, this has been a long time in the making. We did an episode for your show, Mind Movement Health, that was back in May of 2023. So
time flies.
I know, we're finally here. It does. It does. We talked about stress on that one. So I encourage everybody, go have a listen to My Movement Health, our episode about stress from May of 2023. And I'm so glad you're here. I know we could talk for forever, and we're going to start with your story. But really quick, I got to tell our members what they're getting. All right, so members, your recipe this week is for pan-seared fish with citrus pesto. Now, I often hear people say that they either don't cook fish at home or won't cook fish at home or don't know how to cook fish at home. I promise you, you can do it. This recipe makes it super simple, and then you can use the exact same recipe with different types of fish, like Arctic char and salmon or striped bass. You could do it with the skin on or the skin off. So however you can buy the fish, you can use this recipe. And it's a really versatile one. Super impressive, by the way, if you're having guests over, definitely make this one. And then, thanks to Kate, you're also getting a free 15-minute daily Pilates workout. So Kate, I'll let you kind of give us a little preview about, the 15-minute daily Pilates workout.
Sure. So it is 15 minutes, short and sweet, so you can fit it into your most busiest day, but it's going to guide you through some of the fundamental Pilates exercises to help you build strength and mobility at the same time.
Love it. So if you want this recipe or the 15-minute Pilates workout, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. When you take advantage of the full offerings, you save far more than that $10 cost. I say it every time, it is a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes because That's easy. Once you're there, you click support now. Enter your email and payment info. Click subscribe. And you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the pan-seared fish with citrus pesto and your free 15-minute daily Pilates workout from Kate. All right, Kate, so we heard a little bit of your story in introducing you. But, how did you come to this world of fitness and then specifically Pilates?
Well, as you said before, originally I was a dancer, but I injured myself quite early on at 16. So I thought, what am I going to do? My whole plan had been, I'm going to be a dancer. No second plan, up my sleeve. But struggling with an eating disorder growing up, being part of that dance world, I thought I'm going to go off and study nutrition and heal myself and heal others. And whilst I was studying, one of my girlfriends from the dance world said, why don't you go do the Pilates course, teach part-time while you're at uni, earn some money. She'd just done the course and was loving it. And I thought, okay, well, yeah, I've done some Pilates. That sounds good. So I went off and did the Pilates course. And besides, I'd torn meniscus in my knee, I had hamstrings injuries, back pain, all the dancer stuff. I started to heal my own body from doing Pilates and then went, oh my goodness, this system is amazing. If I can heal myself, I can help others. And when I started teaching, sure, lo and behold, people's back pain disappeared, people's knee pain disappeared, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how, fast forward 20 years, which is unbelievable. I've helped thousands of people online, in person, overseas. I worked in Europe for a year, traveling, teaching Pilates. So all around the world, spreading the joy of Pilates.
I love it. And I think there are so many different forms of movement, and we'll focus today on, what makes Pilates so effective and so different from a lot of other things. But maybe we just start with like a fundamental of how do you define Pilates? And maybe part of this is also explaining what Pilates is not, because I think a lot of people confuse Pilates and yoga.
It's one of the most common questions that always comes through, but Pilates is not yoga. It's, there are similarities, we really do connect to our breath. We focus on our movement, but that's where Pilates is. We're different in that we are focusing on engaging our core, learning about our pelvic floor, our deep layer abdominals, our transverse abdominis, and we're, usually focusing on you can use equipment or you can use mats. So there's a few different styles, but we're using the whole body and looking at whole body movement, so full movement patterns. So a lot of the time, if you go to the gym, you'll focus on one area. You may be doing a bicep curl, or, quad extension or whatever it is. In Pilates, we try to, really utilize the exercises to connect the whole body. So we will be working and focusing on our feet right through to the position of our shoulders and our neck. So concentration, precision, breath, these are some of the fundamentals of Pilates, and it's low impact as well. So that's another great sort of bonus for anybody that's wanting to start to move but can't really do high impact exercise. And there's no restriction with age. So, my youngest client is 7. My oldest client at the minute is about 86. So a plethora of people can enjoy Pilates and still get benefits from it.
I love it. And it's interesting because more and more we see younger and younger kids focusing on sort of movement in this way of like what we often see in a gym versus I think when a lot of other people were kids, when we were kids, when our parents were kids, where activity was like running around outside. So I love that this is something that works for every age or can fit every age. But I think, and I sort of mentioned this before, I've even experienced this myself, where I've taken Pilates from an original student of Joseph Pilates. I have taken Pilates on vacation, right? And I've taken Pilates like in a gym, and everywhere it is very different. So can you speak to sort of like true Pilates versus what somebody might experience at a gym or, at a hotel somewhere?
Yeah, sure. So original Pilates is called classical Pilates. So this is a system that Joseph Pilates created. And to this day, they use the same equipment that he created, the same spring loads and the same set of exercises. And they do those exercises in the specific order that Joseph taught as well. So very, traditional, really in the roots of Pilates, and fantastic system to work. But for me, it's not my style. My style is known as contemporary Pilates. So we use the contemporary model where they've, adjusted the reformer, they've extended it, they've added lighter springs and heavier springs. So all different people can, work even if they're injured. And then we use some of the traditional exercises, but then we layer on variations or we pare back and do modifications. So a little bit different. And then when you're on holiday and, often doing, at a hotel or whatever, you may be doing mat Pilates, which is purely just mat-based exercises. Again, they can be the classical form or they can be more of a contemporary form. And generally nowadays, you find more of the contemporary Pilates out there because it is more accessible for the average person that may be coming in because they've got an injury or pain and they're not able to do some of the more advanced exercises that Joseph Pilates taught.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when I think back to our episode on gyrotonic, and you're, a gyrotonic certified also, that is so highly regulated, right? So can you speak to sort of the difference between that and Pilates and what maybe somebody wants to be careful of when looking at, Pilates classes?
Yeah. So the Pilates industry, maybe they could learn or take a page out of gyrotonic. Gyrotonic is very heavily regulated. To some extent, that kind of, almost stops the growth of gyrotonic. But Pilates has kind of gone the opposite way and there's not enough regulation. So you can go see a Pilates instructor like myself that has done a diploma level qualification, lots of study hours and, supervision and supervised teaching, or you can go see an instructor that's done a single weekend or a week's training. A lot of the reformer studios, I will say in Australia, I'm not sure about the States, but in Australia, they generally have a lot of instructors that have only done a 1 or 2 week course. So I often say to people, if you're going to go along, just be really aware of your own injuries. And if you feel that something's too hard, or you're in pain, stop and do let the instructor know. But I also, say to people that if you can work with someone who's really experienced, that's got experience with different injuries and rehab training, then, it's a different experience working with that type of instructor. As I'm sure all your listeners know, working with, a personal trainer or just, going off to a group gym class, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, for sure. And this sort of brings up, you've already said, right? Like you have clients, 7 to 86, right? And you've mentioned pain. Like what might somebody be experiencing for them to say, okay, I want to pay special attention to this, or Pilates might be the right fit for me?
So I get a wide range of people coming to see me for different reasons. Sometimes it's people that are suffering from, say, autoimmune conditions. And so regular forms of exercise that are a bit higher intensity are just too hard. So they gravitate towards Pilates because maybe their doctor has told them or a friend's told them that it's really low impact. We can adjust it. We can take breaks. We can focus more on mobility rather than strength. So you might have that sort of cohort of people. I get the people that have, had a hip replacement or a knee replacement and they're wanting to build strength, but in a really safe environment because they're unsure of what they should be doing. And then I'll get, just the average person that maybe they might be post-baby and they're wanting to build up their strength through pelvic floor again, or even, women going through perimenopause and menopause that may be suffering from, pelvic floor issues and knowing that pelvic floor, Pilates can really help the core. And then I'll get athletes. So, I'll get athletes that are wanting to cross-train and really expand in their sport. So we can really work on, golf is a great example. It's all one-sided, rotational to one side. So when we build up the strength and stabilization to the other side, they get more power, better swing and, really excel in their game. So really there's no one that can't do Pilates. And whenever I'm teaching somebody, they've usually been recommended for some type of reason, but it really is different for everyone.
It's interesting to me, and I love the fact that you're connecting it to other activities that people enjoy doing, because I think it is sort of counterintuitive to some degree for people to say, wait, right? Focusing on the other side of the equation is actually going to help everything I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. And, even people where, the older generation, maybe their mobility isn't as great anymore. And it might just be as simple as, trying to reach up to that top cupboard is getting really hard because they're getting really stiff through their shoulder. We can really just work on that shoulder range and strength. So just everyday movements become easier.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe this, right, then begs the question, like, let's just talk about and help people really understand what they can expect walking into a Pilates experience, right? Because you mentioned, right, there's different kinds of equipment. There's classical versus contemporary and different pieces of equipment. So how can we help people know what to expect and prepare themselves for a Pilates experience?
Yeah, well, I think first off, research who you're going to visit. So if you are wanting, just a gym class where you're going to work really hard and be in a group of 10 to 15 people and not have a lot of, one-on-one contact and, eyes on your body, then, you can look at a group reformer class or a group mat class at the gym and just know going in, it's going to be just a general workout class. If you're heading to a studio, generally like I do at my studio, they will book you in for a one-on-one. So that first session, I want to get to know your body. So when you first come in the door, I am going to be watching to see how you move when you first come in. You're going to fill out a detailed questionnaire, which, people are like, oh, why does she need to know about this surgery I had 10 years ago? Because it affects your movement today. That's, all of that history adds up. And then we'll do a postural assessment. So, you may be standing there a little bit like if you visit an osteo or a chiro or somebody, and, we'll get you to bend forward and to show us your gait as you walk and side bend and lift your arms and check out your mobility and your movement before we then start to talk about the Pilates breathing and then the connection to your pelvic floor and your abdominals, and then finally start to move and use the equipment. So if you're going to a studio where there is equipment, you'll see most people are most sort of familiar with the reformer, this big piece of equipment with springs that moves back and forth. But there's also a Cadillac or a trapeze table as it's otherwise known, a wonder chair, a ladder barrel. So these are some of the other sort of bigger pieces of equipment that you might use within your session as well.
And all of that compared to sort of mat, where it's really focused on your body being the resistance.
Yes. So it's not, everybody sort of has this idea that equipment Pilates, it looks fancy and it's going to be harder. It's not necessarily the case. With the equipment, we can use the equipment to make it harder or make it easier. Whereas when it's you and your mat, there's no forgiveness there. Like, you are holding your body weight. You are not getting any extra support from anything else. So mat Pilates is really hard, but most people tend to gravitate towards the equipment because it looks fun, and it is fun. Using machines and changing up, what machine you're using is fun. But just learning to connect to your breath and build that proprioception in your body doing mat Pilates is really a fantastic place to start.
Yeah, and actually, the proprioception, the connection to the breath and connecting to our body, like you mentioned, also connecting to your core and the pelvic floor. I want to talk more about that. Maybe we can give people a little bit of an intro or a taste. Really quick, though, let's highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So we're talking about Pilates today, which makes me think of working out and your gym clothes. So I wash mine in Snap. It's like the easy button for cleaning. The triple enzyme laundry detergent actually breaks down stains to remove them because it's made of enzymes. It's just $13.95 for 40 ounces and does up to 80 loads of laundry. It is truly free of chemicals and additives. It doesn't even have any scent. Now, if you do want something with scent, they have the Snap Essentials laundry packs, and the scent is described as fresh scent. I just say it's all I can describe it as too. It's not powdery, it's not florally, it's just clean, right? Fresh. And that one is $15.95 for 24 loads. These ones come in little pouches, like a lot of the popular brands out there. So you throw it in the bottom of the washer and you're good to go. So if you're ready, you could also upgrade all of your household cleaning products in one fell swoop with the Snap Pack for just $89.95. So these prices also are all before your discount because you're Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So you get 10% off and free shipping. Simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular the triple enzyme laundry detergent or the Snap Pack at 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Kate, back to you. I think things that are fundamental to Pilates are also words that get strung together, and the average person might be listening and is like, that doesn't even sound like English to me, right? So when you say, right, connecting the breath to the movement and our core, our pelvic floor, can you talk a little bit more about it?
Sure. So pelvic floor, essentially our muscles that hold our urine up in the bladder and allow us to, when they're relaxing, pass, wind and flatulence, or on those occasions you need to hold it in, they need to be strong to hold it in. So, especially for women, as they start to hit perimenopause and menopause, we will lose tone in our pelvic floor. Or if you've had a baby, your pelvic floor can definitely be affected in that strength. So Pilates is fantastic for learning about those muscles and just really becoming aware of them. Because I think, we all just take going to the toilet and stuff for granted until things start going wrong. So we start to learn about how they activate, how we can engage them, and more importantly too, how we can relax and release them. So some people may have a hypertonic or a hypotonic pelvic floor. So they might be too strong or too weak. And that's where we can start to just work on that within our Pilates sessions. So the pelvic floor is the floor of our core. When we're talking about a core, it's not just our six-pack muscles, our rectus abdominis. It's our pelvic floor, our hip flexors, a muscle in our back called our multifidus, all 4 sets of abdominal muscles, and our diaphragm. And we use our diaphragm for breathing. So that's where the connection comes back in, that if we are holding our breath or we're taking really short, shallow breaths, then we're not going to be getting that breath moving, and that can actually affect the tone of our pelvic floor too. So the pelvic floor, the core, and the breath are all interconnected, and probably an area that most people don't tend to focus on until they step into a Pilates studio or, go back to the gym and someone's told them, you've got this injury, this back pain, because you need to start working on your core. And sometimes it's really hard to know, what does that mean? Am I supposed to be doing sit-ups? No, that can mean stability work. So standing balance work, single leg, opposite arm and leg. So we're going to use our core all the time, and challenging it in different positions is really important too.
And I think it's interesting because it's counter to what a lot of people think of in terms of how you build muscle, right? So where does, the science come in? Where is the methodology stemming from, even in terms of the sequence and how it can build?
So a lot of the science behind the breath, and this is some of the science that Joseph Pilates didn't have back in the day, he just did it because it felt right in his body. And then he taught the next person and went, they're getting benefits too. Like so many, things that sort of start that way. But the science now shows that if we can connect to our breath and we can engage our core when we're exhaling, we're actually going to get a better engagement through our core. So, that's what we reinforce in Pilates, that connection to the breath, utilizing that exhale so that we can really lower the intra-abdominal pressure in the body and then work on the strength of those muscles. When it comes to sort of weights, this is where there's a little bit of, controversy when it comes to Pilates, because so many people think, I just go lie down on this machine and, I breathe and I stretch and I don't do a lot. But you can really bump up the spring loads or work with bands or, I've got kettlebells in the studio that my clients are holding onto when they're doing a standing lunge on the reformer. Like you can really bump the weight up. But again, that's not classical Pilates. That's me looking at the body in front of me going, what does this person need? Are they on the edge and maybe heading into osteopenia and we really need to load their bones? So I'm going to adapt their program to suit them, so it's very individualized the way I teach and generally the way a contemporary Pilates, class will run as well.
And so that brings up even other things of, maybe some of the movements or things like, could you give us a little taste of helping people sort of connect to their core or, their pelvic floor in this moment, or even connecting breath to movement, like help people sort of experience it a little bit?
Sure. So a really simple thing that you can do if you're listening in right now, sit down somewhere and place your hands underneath your bottom to feel your sit bones. So you'll feel a bony landmark on either side of those glutes. And what I want people to visualize is those two bones gently drawing together. And as you do that, you should feel a connection through your pelvic floor muscles as those two bones, just visualizing them drawing together. So that's a really simple way to feel that connection through your pelvic floor, and then see if you can just relax your pelvic floor. So especially with the pelvic floor, we don't want to feel like we're pushing on it and bearing down because that will weaken it. It's that nice connection and draw up, and then it's just a nice relax and release. So really simple way to connect to your pelvic floor. And you can do that anywhere. Like nobody can see you activating your pelvic floor, there's no stigma around it. You can practice it sitting, standing, lying down. But a great thing to know is it's going to feel easier to contract your pelvic floor lying down. Then the next hardest position is sitting. And then the hardest position is in standing because you've got the load of your body bearing down on those muscles. So it might not necessarily feel the same when you're standing as when you're lying down. When it comes to breath and connecting to movement, this is where a lot of people really do struggle. And they often say they want to do the reverse. They want to inhale, when they're engaging their pelvic floor. But as we were talking about before, if we connect it with the exhale, the science shows that we're going to get a better core engagement. So that sort of, usually takes a bit of practice to get that coordination going. It's like, tapping your head and rubbing your tummy. You're trying to engage your core and use the exhale at the same time. So generally, again, I just get people to start to connect to their pelvic floor and breathe and just practice that. They might be driving in the car, washing the dishes, standing at the sink. Just see if you can connect that breath to that engagement, and then the movement becomes more natural. And you'll often find when, with kids, they will do it naturally. It just innately, it happens. But as we, start to age and we may have had trauma and injuries and, certain movement patterns that we do over and over that become inherent in our bodies, we start to find that we get into these potential movement patterns or breath patterns that might not be beneficial for us.
Yeah, and I think one of the experiences I've had with Pilates is, it's this very intentional movement, right? So we're thinking about the breath piece, what's happening in the core, the pelvic floor, and then sort of where all of our limbs are in space, and all of that coming together. It can be a lot.
Yeah,
right?
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah. So maybe, can you speak to sort of that connection, right? And what that does in terms of other things and other kinds of movement, like you talked about, maybe an older person being able to then, put things away, on a top shelf. But like, what's the Pilates movement that's creating that or restoring that ability and range of motion and things like that?
Well, it's generally that connection to your body. So it's building that body awareness. Like you were saying before, it's knowing where your arm is in space. So it's very funny, but a lot of people will start Pilates and then be like, oh, I haven't stubbed my toe in the last month. And usually, I'll do it once a week. And I'm like, that's because your proprioception or your body awareness has improved. So, you're more aware of how you move in space. And even some of the exercises that we do, we may be practicing a squat style of movement. And generally that may be a movement that people go, oh no, I avoid that because that will put my back out. But we start to teach them the positioning. We need to keep our heels down. We need to reach our sit bones back behind us. We need to engage our core. So learning about the movement pattern, because again, as we said before, we may have adopted a different movement pattern because it was easier, because of pain, that is really not beneficial. If we can strip it back, and then learn how the correct movement should function, we realize we can do it without pain. Another big one, which sounds really silly, is I often teach people how to stand up and how to sit down. Like, as crazy as that sounds, people will go to stand up, their knees will drop in together, their chest will slump forward, their head and neck will drop forward. And all of this is going to put extra pressure in different areas. So, we start to teach them, keep the length through the upper body, engage the core, push down through the feet, feel those glutes activate to drive you up to stand. And they're like, oh, that feels completely different. Why don't I do that? And I'm like, because something's happened along the way that's caused a disconnect. Your body's gone into protection mode, and then it's just adopted this new way of getting up that may not be so great and may be contributing to that back pain. Or maybe you've lost strength in, one of the muscles, say your glutes, that really should be driving you. And because those muscles aren't switching on, you're overworking your hamstrings, or you're using your arms to help you get up. So, just learning how to move, being present in your body. So many of the other exercises we do, we'll jump on a treadmill, stick the headphones on or turn the TV on and start walking and running away. And we're thinking about, the shopping we've got to do and the kids we've got to pick up. In Pilates, you can't do that, because you then lose your breath or, what your movement's doing, how many reps you've done. So it means for your workout, you actually have to be present in your body. And that alone helps to drop you back into that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest state, and just allow you to really connect with your body, which I think so many of us, it's hard to find the time to do that nowadays.
Absolutely. And I wanted to go to the mind-body connection, but you just mentioned something about, how many reps you do. And I think that was one of the big things when I first started Pilates, was to recognize, like, it's maybe 5 or 10 most of the time, which is another element that I think is really like, wait, what? For a lot of people, right? So why is it that we only need 5 or 10 reps and we move on to the next thing?
Well, generally, if we're doing the movement efficiently, you should be tiring out by the end of that 5 or 10 reps. But I'll also say to my clients, I'll say, okay, you're going to give me 10 of these and then 10 of these. But if you feel tired at rep 5, bring your feet down, have a rest, take 5 seconds, reset, then come back up and continue on. So I think that's a different sort of mindset as well. So many other modalities were like, no, you got to do your 10 or your 20 and you got to push through. Whereas Pilates is very much, no, your body is telling you this is just too hard right now. We're going to start gripping, the opposite muscles that shouldn't be activating. We're going to hold our breath to get through. We're going to brace those abs. So rather than doing that where we're not getting any benefits, take a short 5-second rest and then continue on if you can. And sometimes with my clients, they'll get to rep 8 and they'll just be like, now I can't do those last 2. And I'm like, yep, that's totally fine. We'll continue to build on that. We'll see if we can do 9 next week. So generally we are working at a load where 10 reps is enough, or we're going to layer on and go, okay, our first rep when we're warming up, we're going to do 10. Then the next exercise I'm going to give you is going to be 10, but it's going to be a little bit harder. And the one after that's going to be a little bit harder. So by the end of that series, you've done 30 reps, but each exercise have just gotten a little bit harder.
Yeah, and there's such a method to this series, to what comes after each one too.
Yes.
Right?
And that depends too on your training. So, generally for me with my clients, when they come in, we will start with some type of mobilization work, because if they're really tight coming in and then I'm trying to contract muscles, everything's just going to get tighter and more wound up. So might work on some hip mobilization or spinal mobilization. Then we'll start to sort of connect to the pelvic floor and the core. Then we may move through some abdominal work and then layer on leg and arm work. And then generally towards the end of the class, we're going to add in upper back. So that's another area that most people don't focus on, is that sort of mid to upper back. Not just for posture, but for overall strength, so that we're not getting that really tight chest and we're not feeling closed in on our breath. And then we generally finish our class with some type of, integration work where everything is working together with balance.
And that's that everything working together. And then you started to talk about it too before with, the mind-body connection. And when we're really connected, we only maybe need a few reps because everything is working together. And this whole piece of learning to understand our body's communication and working together versus pushing against what's coming from our body, I think is a big topic in, both of our spaces. And one of the things, I know we talked about this last time you and I connected, but you have so many stories of people where that mind-body connection that they have sort of honed in Pilates spills over into other areas of their lives. Anything popping to mind that, or a story or two that you could share with us?
Well, I'm thinking of one client in particular that started Pilates with me, and he had no mind-body connection, really disconnected. I would put my, hand on the back of his leg with permission and say, can you feel your hamstrings contract? And he'd shake his head like, no, I can't feel anything, and again, just with time and practice. And when he first started, he had lower back pain, neck pain, general sitting a lot of the time, long hours at work. And once we started to connect to his breathing, and then he started just to practice that, he was like, light bulb moment, like, oh my goodness, when I start to take a deep breath, I feel so much more relaxed in my body. I know that I sit taller, and I said, yeah, amazing. So something as simple as just connecting with your breath, you've taken outside of the studio. Then with his hamstrings, he'd often have hamstring injuries. So we started building up his strength with just basic bridges and single leg bridges. And, I'd get him to put his hand there and feel the muscle contract and release. And he was a tennis player. So, once we then started to build that connection, he'd be like, oh, when I'm playing tennis now, I know I can take a big step into that lunge to hit the ball. And I don't feel my hamstring go because I'm engaging through my abdominals. I know where my stability should come from. And I'm like, that's amazing. So taking, I always say that Pilates is like the glue for everything else. It's the glue for everyday life, for the activities you want to do just to have fun. It's the glue that, if you're playing a sport and you want to, just stay fit enough to play it, or you want to increase your performance, Pilates is going to take you to that. If you're in a stressful situation, and maybe it's stress that's just continuous and there's no escaping it, you've just got to manage it. Going back to your Pilates breathing, even if you just lie down on the floor and connect with your breath, is going to serve you well. So you can take it into any area of your life, really, which is one of the reasons why, when I first gravitated towards it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is not just fixing an injury. It's helping people physically and mentally as well.
Absolutely. And from age 7 to 86 and beyond. Awesome. Well, I think that brings us to our rapid fire off-topic questions. Are you ready?
Yep. Go for it.
All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
The best thing I've done is be really good with my workouts, fitting them in, making sure I'd scheduled them into my diary. The naughtiest thing is I had a really good brownie with some ice cream the other night. Not that that's naughty, but, it's probably
sounds delicious.
Not on the, healthy field, but I believe in balance. So, got to add those things in.
100%. If you weren't a Pilates and gyrotonic instructor, what would you do?
Physiotherapy. So, so many of my clients have said, why don't you become a physio? And I'm like, because how would I fit it in amongst all my, Pilates and nutrition clients? So yeah, I would become a physio.
I love it. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise? Or you could give us a fiction book.
Well, I literally just finished reading yesterday. What was it? It was chemistry, Love and Chemistry, or Chemistry and Love. It's a new Netflix series that's just come out, and it's a book. Fantastic. Based in the 1950s with a female scientist. So yes, that one.
Oh, I love that one. Lessons in Chemistry.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Excellent. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Oh, that's the toughest one, I would say. I would have to say, just from personal experience and family members, that it would be cancer.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Flying. My girls say to me all the time, and we've had this conversation in our house, and we are all unanimous on flying.
I love it. What's your biggest pet peeve?
People not being considerate of other people.
I get it. All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
That's an interesting one. Depends what area. I really do think AI is going to come into play, and there's going to be, so much more. The TVs are going to have like holograms that come out that have your instructor that's just going to talk to you and stuff like that. So I think, far off that's going to happen. And then in the mental health side, I really think that the psychedelics and CBD and all of that is really going to start to become, I guess, more explored around the world.
Love it. Well, thank you again for being here. Tell everybody where to connect with you, how to listen to your podcast, all the things.
Awesome. So you'll find me on Instagram and, Facebook and all the places at My Movement Health. My podcast is called My Movement Health, and it focuses on women's health and wellness. And my website is www.mymovementhealth.com.au because I'm Australia.
Awesome. Yes, we'll put links to everything in the episode notes. Just thank you again. Appreciate your time, your expertise, and your perspective to help everybody. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Jen. It's been great.
Good. So everybody, it is Nutrition Nugget O'Clock. On Friday, we're talking about Crystal Light. Do you remember this? Kate, do you guys have Crystal Light in Australia?
No.
I'm pretty sure I know why. So I remember it from like the 80s and 90s. They were like these 0-calorie powders that you added to water to turn them into like lemonade or a fruity drink. Anyway, I haven't heard about them in years. And then recently somebody asked me about them and I was like, I didn't even know they were still being sold. So I went to look at it. I figured, let's look at it together. So that's what we're going to do on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then the app will alert you when the Nutrition Nugget goes live at 3 a.m. on Friday. Just makes it easier. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithaside-of-fries.com. Please send a message, whatever platform. I want to hear your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Kate Boyle, one more time, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on the show, Jen. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And friend, if you're not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithaside-of-fries to show your support for this podcast, this community. Most importantly, though, support your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the pan-seared fish with citrus pesto and your free 15-minute daily Pilates workout from Kate Boyle. Anytime, anywhere, you can do this Pilates workout. So until next week, remember, you can strengthen your body in a way that is also supportive and restorative. So perhaps it's time to give Pilates a try. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.